The price of a person's character is revealed the moment money stops being the answer. The rusty tow truck rolled slowly into the gravel parking lot just after sunrise, carrying a faded 1967 Ford Mustang covered beneath years of dust, quiet memories, and forgotten roads. Its once brilliant dark blue paint had surrendered to time, its chrome trim had lost its shine, and one weathered leather strap barely held the hood in place. Yet before the truck even came to a complete stop, a line of luxury SUVs pulled in behind it, followed by reporters, photographers, and curious neighbors who had somehow heard the unbelievable rumors spreading across Chicago since dawn. A young millionaire had announced she would pay $1 million to anyone capable of restoring her late father's beloved car. Mechanics from across Illinois had already called. Specialty restoration shops had offered immediate appointments. Collectors had promised miracles. Television crews waited for dramatic reactions. But the Mustang did not stop in front of any famous restoration garage. It stopped outside a modest repair shop with a hand-painted wooden sign that simply read Carter Auto Service. The garage doors were already open. Inside, Adam Carter tightened the final bolt on an aging pickup truck before wiping grease from his hands with an old blue shop towel. 32 years old, broad-shouldered, with dark brown hair and the quiet confidence earned through years of honest work, he looked nothing like the celebrity mechanics featured on television. He was simply a single father trying to keep the lights on while raising his 8-year-old daughter, Emma, who sat in the corner finishing her summer reading assignment beside a loyal golden retriever sleeping peacefully on the shop floor. Adam glanced toward the arriving crowd, then calmly returned the wrench to its place before walking outside. The young woman stepped from the lead SUV wearing a tailored cream-colored coat over a simple dress, her golden hair moving gently in the cool morning breeze. Lauren Hayes carried herself with the confidence of someone accustomed to boardrooms, billion-dollar negotiations, and flashing cameras, yet the moment her eyes landed on the old Mustang, all of that confidence softened into something much quieter. She walked toward the car instead of the reporters. She rested one hand against the worn driver's door as though greeting an old friend. Then she finally spoke. "My father loved this car more than anything he ever owned." Her voice remained steady, but her eyes revealed years of unfinished grief. One of the reporters quickly asked, "Miss Hayes, is it true you are offering $1 million to whoever restores it?" Lauren nodded without hesitation. "If someone can bring it back the way my father remembered it, the reward stands." Cameras clicked nonstop. Mechanics whispered excitedly. One man immediately began listing rare replacement parts and 6-month restoration timelines. Another estimated the engine alone would cost hundreds of thousands of dollars to rebuild. Adam listened quietly without interrupting. Only after everyone else finished speaking did he slowly walk toward the open engine bay. He leaned forward, studying the weathered components without touching a single bolt. His eyes moved carefully across old fuel lines, handwritten maintenance markings, and faded paint pen notes hidden beneath years of dust. Then he smiled almost imperceptibly before standing upright again. Lauren looked at him expectantly. "Can you restore it?" Adam answered with complete sincerity. "I do not know yet." The surrounding crowd laughed softly. Someone muttered that he clearly lacked confidence. Another mechanic shook his head and whispered that serious restorations required certainty. Adam ignored every comment. Instead, he looked back at Lauren and asked a question nobody expected. "Did your father always change his own oil?" Lauren froze. Every reporter lowered a camera. Every mechanic became silent. No one understood why that simple question mattered. Adam waited patiently until she nodded. "Every 3,000 miles, she answered quietly. Adam smiled again, this time with unmistakable warmth. "Then before anyone spends $1 million, would $15 cover a new gasket?" The entire parking lot fell silent, as though the old Mustang itself had been waiting years for someone to ask exactly the right question. The silence lingered several seconds longer than anyone expected. Reporters glanced at one another, unsure whether they had just witnessed remarkable confidence or complete foolishness. A veteran restoration specialist quietly folded his arms and smiled with polite disbelief. "A $15 gasket," he said with a chuckle. "Young man, this engine has not started in years." Another mechanic stepped closer to the Mustang and nodded toward the faded hood. "You do not even know what is wrong with it." Adam never argued. He simply lifted the hood another few inches and carefully secured the support rod before studying the engine compartment with patient eyes. He did not reach for expensive diagnostic equipment. He did not connect a computer. Instead, he slowly ran his flashlight across every hose, every clamp, every handwritten service mark left behind by the previous owner. Lauren watched quietly from only a few feet away. Most people looked at the Mustang and saw a valuable collector's car. Adam looked at it as though he were listening to someone tell a story. After several moments, he asked another unexpected question. Did your father believe every machine deserved respect? Lauren blinked in surprise. Yes. He always said a mechanic should understand a car before trying to repair it. Adam smiled gently. Then I think we would have gotten along. Those simple words carried no arrogance, only admiration. Emma looked up from her book inside the garage and quietly walked over carrying 2 bottles of water from the small refrigerator. Without saying a word, she handed one to Lauren and another to her father before returning to her chair. Lauren smiled warmly. Thank you. Emma shrugged with the natural kindness of a child. Dad says people think better when they are not thirsty. Several members of the crowd laughed softly. The tension eased. Adam reached into a small toolbox and removed an old mechanic's inspection mirror. He carefully angled it beneath the engine, studying an area almost hidden from view. Then he noticed something that made him pause. Along the side of the oil pan, nearly invisible, beneath years of dust, someone had written a date with a silver paint marker. Next to it were 3 small words. Changed by Dad. Adam remained perfectly still. A few inches away, another note appeared in the same handwriting. Do not rush. Listen first. Lauren stepped closer. What is it? Adam pointed without touching the markings. Lauren's eyes immediately filled with emotion. That is my father's handwriting. Her voice barely rose above a whisper. He wrote little reminders everywhere. Adam nodded respectfully. I can tell. One reporter asked why that mattered. Adam answered without taking his eyes off the engine. People leave fingerprints with grease instead of ink. If you pay attention, machines remember the people who cared for them. The crowd grew quiet once again. No one laughed anymore. Adam reached beneath the front bumper and noticed a small stain near the timing cover. It was old, dry, and surprisingly clean compared to the surrounding engine. He smiled almost immediately. There it is. Lauren leaned forward. You found the problem? Adam stood up slowly and wiped his hands on the shop towel. I found where I would begin. One of the restoration specialists crossed his arms. You still think this only needs a gasket? Adam looked calmly toward the veteran mechanic. I think someone replaced almost everything that could wear out before putting this car away. Whoever maintained it believed in preventing problems instead of chasing them. Lauren quietly nodded. That sounds exactly like my father. Adam looked back at the Mustang with quiet respect. Then I do not believe he would have walked away from a major engine failure without trying to fix it. Something small convinced him to stop driving it. Just then he reached beneath the driver's seat and carefully picked up a weathered maintenance notebook that had slipped halfway onto the floor. Tucked inside its cover was an old receipt dated only 3 days before the car had been parked forever, and beside a $15 gasket purchase, someone had handwritten one sentence that caused Adam's expression to change completely. Do not let anyone replace what patience can restore. Adam held the weathered maintenance notebook with the same care someone might use when opening an old family Bible. Every page carried neat handwriting, carefully dated oil changes, tire rotations, spark plug replacements, and short reminders written not for a customer, but for the man who loved the Mustang enough to treat every repair as a promise. Lauren stood beside him without speaking. She recognized every curve of her father's handwriting immediately. It felt less like reading mechanical notes and more like hearing his voice after years of silence. The reporters lowered their cameras. Even the experienced mechanics stopped whispering among themselves. Something about the notebook demanded respect. Adam slowly turned another page. Tucked between 2 maintenance records rested a faded photograph no larger than a postcard. It showed a younger man standing proudly beside the very same Mustang outside a small neighborhood repair shop. Several people leaned closer to see the picture, but Adam's attention was not on the car. His eyes fixed on the wooden sign hanging above the garage entrance in the background. He froze. Lauren noticed his expression. What is it? She asked softly. Adam looked at the photograph again before answering. I know this place. One of the mechanics shook his head. Impossible. That shop closed decades ago. Adam nodded slowly. I know because my father used to bring me there every Saturday morning. Lauren looked surprised. You have been there? Adam smiled faintly as memories quietly returned. I was just a little boy. I thought every mechanic in the world worked with that much patience. He pointed toward the older man standing beside the Mustang in the photograph. Your father. Then his finger moved toward another figure almost hidden near the garage doorway. The man was kneeling beside a toolbox, partly covered by shadows. His face was difficult to recognize, but the worn baseball cap was unmistakable. Adam's voice became almost a whisper. That is my father. Lauren stared at the photograph, unable to believe what she was seeing. Two strangers standing in the same picture years before either of their children ever met. The crowd remained completely silent. No one expected the old Mustang to connect two families separated by decades. Adam carefully turned the photograph over. On the back, someone had written a single sentence in blue ink. Someday this car will belong to someone who understands why honesty matters more than horsepower. Lauren gently covered her mouth. I have never seen this before. Adam returned the photograph to the notebook exactly where he found it. Your father was leaving messages, not just maintenance notes. Lessons. Emma quietly walked over again and looked at the picture without interrupting the adults. Grandpa used to leave notes too, she said. Dad still keeps them in his toolbox. Adam smiled at his daughter before closing the notebook. Some people leave money behind. Others leave instructions for living. As the morning sun climbed higher, its light reached deep into the engine bay, revealing another nearly invisible paint mark beneath the firewall. Adam leaned closer. Unlike the other reminders, this one was different. It was not a maintenance note. It was only 3 carefully printed letters followed by a tiny engraved star that almost disappeared beneath the old paint. Adam traced the air above it without touching the metal. He did not tell anyone what he had noticed. Instead, he quietly closed the hood halfway and looked toward Lauren with calm certainty. Your father was not trying to hide a broken car, he said. He was protecting something far more valuable. Lauren searched his face for an explanation, but Adam simply smiled with quiet dignity. Deep inside, he already understood that the greatest mystery waiting inside the Mustang had nothing to do with the engine at all. Lauren remained beside the Mustang long after everyone else drifted into quiet conversations. Her fingertips rested lightly on the weathered fender as though letting go would erase the last connection she still had with her father. Finally, she drew a slow breath. There is something I have never told anyone outside my family, she said. Every eye turned toward her, but she spoke only to Adam. The $1 million reward was never really about fixing the car. Adam listened without interrupting. For 12 years, I hired the best restoration shops in the country. Some promised perfection. Others wanted to replace almost every original part. A few offered to build an entirely new engine. She gently shook her head. Every one of them asked the same question first. Adam already knew the answer. How much are you willing to spend? Lauren nodded. Not one of them ever asked who my father was. The morning breeze carried the scent of old motor oil and fresh coffee from the small office inside the garage. Emma quietly placed a fresh pot on the counter before returning to her book, allowing the adults their conversation. Lauren smiled softly at the simple scene. This place reminds me of being a little girl. My father always said a real garage should feel welcoming before it feels impressive. Adam looked around his modest shop with fresh appreciation. The concrete floor carried years of honest work. The walls displayed old hand tools polished by constant use instead of expensive decorations. Nothing about the place suggested wealth, yet everything reflected care. Lauren continued. My father believed a person's character appeared most clearly when nobody was watching. She looked directly at Adam. That is why I announced the reward publicly. I was not searching for the best mechanic. I was searching for someone who would look beyond the money. Several reporters quietly lowered their notebooks. The story they expected had suddenly become something entirely different. Adam reached into his toolbox and carefully removed an old folded photograph protected inside a clear plastic sleeve. He handed it to Lauren. It showed his own father standing beside a worn pickup truck outside the same neighborhood repair shop from decades earlier. On the back, written in faded black ink, were familiar words. Never charge for honesty because honesty already pays you. Lauren compared the handwriting in Adam's photograph with the notes inside her father's maintenance notebook. The writing styles were different, Yet the message felt remarkably similar. She smiled through quiet emotion. Maybe they learned from each other. Adam nodded. Or maybe good people simply recognized the same truths. As they continued examining the Mustang together, Adam noticed a narrow metal compartment hidden behind the glove box that had not appeared in any factory diagrams he remembered. It blended so naturally into the dashboard that almost nobody would have seen it. The tiny engraved star matched the symbol he had noticed beneath the firewall only minutes earlier. Without drawing attention, he gently tested the edge with his fingertip. It did not move. Whatever lay behind it had been intentionally secured years ago. Adam quietly withdrew his hand before anyone else noticed. Lauren was still speaking about her father, unaware of the hidden compartment only inches away. Adam said nothing about his discovery. Some things deserve patience before curiosity. Looking back at Lauren, he smiled gently. I think your father expected someone to find answers one step at a time. She tilted her head. What makes you so certain? Adam glanced once more toward the tiny engraved star before meeting her eyes. Because the people who leave lessons instead of shortcuts usually trust the right person to arrive when the time is finally right. The afternoon sunlight stretched across the garage floor as Adam rolled a small tool cart beside the Mustang with the calm precision of someone who believed that rushing often created the very problems people hoped to solve. The crowd had grown smaller. Reporters who had expected dramatic repairs and expensive machinery slowly lost interest, leaving behind only a handful of mechanics, Lauren, Emma, and a few curious neighbors who sensed they were witnessing something far more meaningful than a restoration. Adam carefully drained the old engine oil into a clean inspection pan. Instead of looking disappointed by its age, he smiled quietly. That is interesting, he murmured. Lauren stepped closer. What did you find? Adam dipped a small inspection magnet into the oil and lifted it back out. The surface remained almost perfectly clean. No metal fragments, he explained. If the engine had suffered a catastrophic failure, we would see evidence here. One of the veteran mechanics frowned. That cannot be right. This car has not moved in over a decade. Adam nodded. Exactly, which tells me someone parked it before any serious damage could happen. He removed the old gasket with slow, careful movements, preserving every piece as though it were part of the car's history. The rubber had become dry and brittle after years of sitting and used. Tiny cracks spread across its edges like lines on an old map. Adam held it toward Lauren. This is what stopped your father from driving the car. She looked puzzled. A gasket. A leaking gasket, Adam corrected gently. It allowed oil pressure to drop just enough to make him stop using the car before risking permanent engine damage. He protected the engine instead of gambling with it. Lauren closed her eyes for a moment. That sounded exactly like the man who had taught her never to ignore small problems simply because they were inexpensive. Adam opened a small parts cabinet near the back wall and searched through neatly labeled drawers until he found the replacement gasket. A faded price sticker remained attached to the package. $15. Emma noticed it first and smiled. Dad, that is the same amount you mentioned this morning. Adam smiled back. Because the answer was sitting here the whole time. Even the skeptical mechanics exchanged thoughtful glances. They had expected rare imported components and complicated engineering. Instead, the solution had been waiting quietly on an ordinary shelf. Adam carefully installed the new gasket, checking each bolt by hand instead of relying on power tools. Every turn of the wrench was measured. Every movement reflected patience rather than speed. Lauren watched in complete silence. She realized she had never actually seen anyone repair something with such obvious respect. When everything was finished, Adam reached for the ignition key resting inside the worn cup holder. He paused before turning it. Your father left enough clues for anyone willing to listen, he said softly. Now we find out if he also left us enough faith. Lauren gave a small nod. Adam turned the key halfway. The electrical system awakened instantly. Dashboard lights glowed warmly for the first time in years. A quiet murmur spread through the remaining crowd. Adam waited several seconds before turning the key completely. The starter engaged smoothly. Once, twice. Then, with a deep, confident rumble, the old V8 engine came to life as though it had simply awakened from a long afternoon nap instead of 12 silent years. The sound filled the garage with warmth rather than noise. Lauren covered her mouth as tears gathered in her eyes. Emma laughed with delight. Even the veteran mechanics broke into applause. Adam simply listened to the steady rhythm of the engine, adjusting nothing. He already knew it was healthy. As the Mustang settled into a smooth idle, something unexpected happened. A tiny metallic click echoed from behind the dashboard. The hidden compartment marked with the engraved star quietly unlocked itself, but no one noticed except Adam, whose eyes briefly met the dashboard before returning to Lauren with the same calm smile he had worn all day. The steady rhythm of the engine filled the little garage with a warmth that no amount of money could have purchased. It was not loud or dramatic. It was smooth, confident, and reassuring, like the voice of an old friend returning after years of silence. Lauren closed her eyes and smiled through tears she no longer tried to hide. "That is exactly how I remember it," she whispered. "Every Sunday morning before church, my father would start the engine and let it idle while he packed our picnic basket." Emma looked at Lauren with quiet curiosity. "You can remember a sound for that long?" Lauren nodded gently. "Some sounds never leave your heart." Adam slowly lowered the hood until it rested perfectly in place. He listened for another few seconds before switching the engine off. The sudden quiet somehow felt even more meaningful than the rumble that had filled the room moments earlier. One of the remaining mechanics stepped forward and removed his cap. "I have restored cars for almost 30 years, he admitted. "Today I learned that listening is sometimes more valuable than replacing parts." Adam smiled politely, but said nothing. Praise had never interested him nearly as much as honest work. Lauren reached inside her leather portfolio and removed a crisp cashier's check. Every person standing nearby immediately recognized the amount printed across the front. $1 million. She held it toward Adam with both hands. "This belongs to you," she said. "You gave me something no restoration company could ever deliver." Adam looked at the check for only a moment before reaching into his pocket. He unfolded a small handwritten invoice from his repair pad and placed it on the workbench beside the check. Labor, 1 standard diagnostic inspection, 1 replacement gasket, shop supplies, taxes. The total came to $187.43. Beneath it, he had written one additional line in careful handwriting. Customer already supplied the $15 gasket. Amount due, $172.43. Lauren stared at the invoice before looking back at Adam in complete disbelief. "You cannot be serious." Adam smiled with quiet kindness. "I am completely serious." She gently pushed the cashier's check closer to him again. "Please, you earned this." Adam slowly slid it back across the workbench. "Your father spent a lifetime teaching that honesty mattered more than horsepower. If I accepted money I did not earn, I would ignore everything he tried to teach." Lauren lowered her eyes. The words struck her more deeply than any speech ever could. "You knew him for less than a day?" she said softly. Adam nodded. "Sometimes people introduce themselves through the way they care for ordinary things." Emma quietly walked over and looked at the invoice. "Dad," she asked, "why did you not make it an even $170? Adam smiled at his daughter. "Because honesty is rarely a round number." The small crowd laughed gently, but the laughter quickly faded into thoughtful silence. Lauren folded the cashier's check without another word and slipped it back into her portfolio. Then she looked around the humble garage once more, noticing details she had overlooked that morning. The repaired children's bicycle waiting for pickup. The handwritten thank you cards taped beside the office window. The coffee pot that anyone could use without paying. Every corner reflected the same quiet integrity Adam had shown all day. As Lauren turned back toward the Mustang, a faint metallic sound came from inside the dashboard once again. This time she heard it too. She frowned slightly. "Did you hear that?" Adam glanced toward the dashboard, remembering the hidden compartment that had quietly unlocked itself when the engine first came to life. He met Lauren's eyes with calm patience and nodded once. "Yes," he said gently. "I think your father just told us that he was finally ready for us to see what he spent all those years protecting." Adam walked slowly to the driver's side and rested one hand on the dashboard without forcing anything to move. The tiny metallic sound had stopped, leaving only the quiet ticking of the cooling engine. Everyone gathered around the Mustang instinctively, but Adam gently raised his hand. "Please," he said with a calm smile. "If your father went to this much effort to protect something, the least we can do is be patient." No one argued. Even the reporters who remained lowered their cameras. Lauren stepped beside him, her breathing steady but filled with anticipation. Do you think there is really something hidden inside? She asked. Adam nodded thoughtfully. I think there is something your father wanted found only after someone understood why this car mattered. He reached beneath the dashboard and lightly pressed near the engraved star he had noticed earlier. Nothing happened. Instead of trying harder, he quietly stepped back and looked around the interior once more. His eyes paused on the old steering wheel. Then they settled on the gear selector. Finally, they stopped on the dashboard clock, frozen at exactly 9:15 for more than a decade. Adam smiled almost immediately. That is unusual. Lauren looked at the clock. It stopped the day the battery died. Adam shook his head gently. No. Mechanical dashboard clocks usually stop at random. This one was set. Lauren frowned. Set by my father? Adam nodded. I think he wanted someone to notice. He carefully turned the ignition key to the accessory position without starting the engine. Then he adjusted the dashboard clock until it once again displayed 9:15. A soft click echoed through the cabin. Everyone heard it this time. A narrow section behind the glove compartment quietly released and opened less than an inch. Emma gasped with excitement, but remained exactly where she stood. Adam looked toward Lauren. This belongs to you. Lauren slowly opened the hidden compartment with trembling hands. Inside rested a small cedarwood box, beautifully crafted but worn smooth from years of careful handling. There was no lock, only another engraved star on the lid. She lifted it carefully and found 3 items inside. The first was an old silver pocket watch. The second was a neatly folded handwritten letter with her name written across the front. The third was a sealed envelope addressed simply to the honest mechanic. Lauren stared silently at the 2 envelopes before gently picking up the one bearing her name. I have waited 12 years for this, she whispered. Adam quietly pointed toward the second envelope. I think your father expected someone else to be standing here too. Lauren handed it to him without hesitation. Then you should be the one to open it. Adam looked surprised. It was not written to me. Lauren smiled through grateful tears. No, but it was written for whoever earned it. Adam slowly unfolded the yellowed paper. The handwriting was steady and familiar. If you are reading this, then you repaired my car without letting money become the reason you touched it. Thank you for proving that honest craftsmen still exist. Please tell my daughter that I never hid this box because it was valuable. I hid it because I wanted her to remember that trust should always be given to character before wealth. Adam paused for a moment before continuing. The final sentence caused his voice to soften. There is one more truth inside this story, but it belongs to both of our families now. Ask the man beside you if his father's name was Daniel Carter. Adam slowly lowered the letter. His face reflected genuine astonishment for the first time that day. Lauren looked at him with quiet disbelief. Your father was Daniel? Adam answered almost in a whisper. Yes. Lauren carefully unfolded her own letter, and before reading a single line, she already sensed that the remarkable connection between their fathers had only begun to reveal itself. Lauren unfolded her father's letter with hands that trembled not from fear, but from the weight of finally hearing a voice she had missed for 12 long years. The paper had yellowed with age, yet every word remained clear. My dearest Lauren, if this letter has reached you, then someone worthy has already restored more than a car. They have restored your faith in people. I know you will be tempted to measure success by what you can afford, because the world rewards wealth so loudly. Do not let it convince you that money recognizes character. Character recognizes character. A tear rolled quietly down Lauren's cheek as she continued reading. If the mechanic standing beside you is Daniel Carter's son, then life has completed a promise your father and I made many years ago. Adam listened in complete silence, his own letter resting loosely in his hands. Lauren looked up at him before continuing aloud so everyone present could hear. Your father and Daniel Carter met as strangers inside a neighborhood garage. We became friends because neither of us would ever charge a customer for work that was not needed. Some weeks we earned almost nothing, but we always returned home able to look our families in the eye. Adam smiled softly, remembering countless evenings when his own father returned home tired yet peaceful. Lauren continued reading. Before you were born, Daniel and I made a simple promise. If either of us ever had children, we hoped they would inherit honesty instead of fortune. If life ever allowed those children to meet, then we would know our example had survived us. The little garage became completely silent once again. Even the afternoon traffic outside seemed distant. Emma quietly reached for her father's hand without saying a word. Adam gently squeezed hers. Lauren carefully turned to the final page. There is something else you should know. 12 years ago, my doctor told me my time would likely be short. That was not why I parked the Mustang. I parked it because I realized people had begun admiring what I owned, instead of who I was. I wanted this car to become one final lesson. Whoever rushed to claim the reward would never deserve it. Whoever respected the journey more than the payment would already possess something greater than $1 million. Lauren lowered the letter and looked at Adam with quiet admiration. He was waiting for you, she whispered. Adam slowly shook his head. No. His voice remained gentle. He was waiting for anyone who chose honesty first. It just happened to be me. Lauren smiled because she knew that answer alone proved her father had been right. She then looked toward the cashier's check still resting inside her portfolio. For the first time that day, she no longer felt disappointed that Adam had refused it. Instead, she understood why accepting it would have diminished the very lesson her father had worked so carefully to preserve. She quietly folded the check and returned it to its envelope without another attempt to persuade him. Then her eyes settled on the small silver pocket watch resting inside the cedar box. She opened its engraved cover. Inside was another brief inscription. Time reveals character more faithfully than success ever will. Beneath the watch lay one final folded piece of paper, smaller than the others and almost hidden beneath the velvet lining. It was not addressed to Lauren. It was not addressed to Adam. Across the front, written in the same careful handwriting, were only 4 simple words. Opened together, 1 year later. Adam and Lauren exchanged a quiet glance. Neither reached for it. Without speaking, they both understood that some gifts earned their meaning not by being discovered quickly, but by having the patience to wait until the right moment arrived. 1 year passed with surprising quiet. The cameras disappeared. The headlines faded. The old Mustang returned to the road exactly as Lauren's father had remembered it, not because it became a showpiece, but because it was driven every Sunday morning just as he once had. Adam returned to repairing family cars inside Carter Auto Service, charging the same honest prices he always had. Emma grew taller, filled another shelf with library books, and still greeted every customer with the same warm smile. Lauren never mentioned the $1 million reward again. Instead, she invested her time restoring small neighborhood garages that had served their communities for generations, preserving places where integrity still mattered more than appearance. She never put her own name on any of the projects. Adam learned about most of them only when grateful mechanics stopped by his shop to say thank you. On the anniversary of the Mustang's restoration, Lauren arrived just after sunrise carrying the cedar box beneath one arm. Adam looked at the small folded note resting inside exactly where they had left it 12 months earlier. Neither of them had broken the promise. Emma stood nearby holding the silver pocket watch while the old Mustang idled softly outside the garage, its steady engine sounding almost like quiet encouragement. Lauren carefully unfolded the final note. The handwriting immediately brought tears to her eyes. If you are reading this together after 1 year, then you honored the hardest lesson I ever hoped to teach. Patience proves character more honestly than ambition. Thank you for waiting. Adam smiled gently. Your father knew exactly what he was doing. Lauren continued reading. If you are still standing beside one another today, then I ask one final favor. Do not spend your lives protecting old memories. Build new ones worthy of being remembered. Leave behind opportunities instead of monuments. Help people before they know they need help. And when someone thanks you, remind them that kindness grows best when nobody is keeping score. Lauren folded the letter against her heart. No one spoke for several moments. The quiet felt complete. Then Emma noticed a folded legal envelope tucked beneath the velvet lining of the cedar box, hidden so perfectly that none of them had seen it before. Lauren looked at Adam with surprise. That was not there last year. Adam gently lifted the envelope. The paper had settled beneath the lining over time, invisible until the box had naturally loosened with age. Across the front was written, "Open only after you have finished reading everything else." Inside rested a single property deed and one final handwritten page. Adam read the first line aloud before his voice caught with emotion. 28 years ago, Daniel Carter refused payment for repairing my family's truck because he said a father should never have to choose between feeding his children and fixing the only vehicle that took him to work. I tried to repay him many times. He never accepted $1. So together we purchased the building that became Carter Auto Service, placing it into a trust with one instruction. Transfer ownership to Daniel's child only after an honest mechanic repairs my Mustang without chasing the reward. Adam stared silently at the official deed. His hands trembled for the first time since Lauren had arrived the previous year. He had spent years believing he struggled every month simply to keep renting the garage where he worked. Lauren looked at the signature page and smiled through grateful tears. You never rented this place, Adam. She gently turned the deed toward him. Your father already owned it. He simply never told you because he wanted you to earn your reputation before inheriting his gift. The little garage fell completely silent. Outside, the old Mustang continued idling peacefully beneath the morning sun, as though two fathers who had believed that honesty was worth more than fortune had quietly kept one final promise that neither of their children ever saw coming.